Welcome to Pathways to Greatness, where we explore the journeys of exceptional individuals who have achieved remarkable success in their fields. Whether you're an aspiring athlete, a business leader, or simply someone striving to reach your full potential, this podcast is your guide to unlocking the greatness within you. Join us as we dive into inspiring stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts that can transform your path to greatness. Let's embark on this journey together. Unleash your potential with Concrete Consulting. Are you a student athlete striving for greatness? Do you want to enhance your mental performance and elevate your game? At Concrete, we specialize in mental performance and success coaching tailored for student athletes, parents, and coaches. Our expert coaches provide personalized strategies to boost confidence, improve focus, and achieve your goals both on and off the field. Don't just play the game, conquer it. Visit concreteconsulting.com and schedule your free consultation today. Take the first step towards success. I don't know. I think Riverside just froze a little bit. But hey, everybody, welcome back to Pathways to Greatness podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Forrester. And today's episode is with Matt Matkovich. And this is a great one. So he is best buds with Phil Januszewski. Sorry, Phil, if I butchered your last name. But they're part of M&P Productions and they do, or presentations, I think. Oh my goodness, I'm hacking this thing all to pieces. But anyways, it's Matt Matkovich. And we have a wonderful, wonderful conversation where he shares about himself, he shares about what he does, and just gives a lot of pertinent wisdom that each and every one of us can apply to our lives today and move forward. And the big thing that I want to draw your attention to is the importance of planning to be uncomfortable for the day and the value that that brings. I know that sounds weird, but when you listen to the conversation, it'll make perfect sense. So ladies and gentlemen, Matt Matkovich. Deep breath, everybody. Deep breath. All right. Yes. So here we are today on Pathways to Great with Matt Matkovich. Did I do it right?
Right on the money, brother.
Perfect. I had to go back and watch it several times. I still can't say Phil's last name, so I always just say Phil.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of confusion over his last name, but he's kind of like Madonna. He goes by one name. I think if you say Phil in the world of self-help, I think people will know who you're talking about.
100% correct. Or in the world of networking and connecting.
Oh, yes,
he's the man.
He is first ballot Hall of Fame. Yes.
Yep. Well, today's episode on Pathways is not about Phil. It's about Matt. And he's would you want to say the better half of the duo?
That depends on what type of taste you have, Jeff. You know, it truly does depend. Phil is a very, very great friend of mine. We are extremely close, and through our speaking journey as M&P, we've just had some amazing experience, memories, and just all together. But it's led us to so many wonderful people like yourself too. So I'm excited to join you today.
Yeah, man, I am too, because I'm going to dig in, get to know you better, have the audience get to know you, because I know you're going to bring out a wealth of information. But before we do that, just like with every guest, I like to play a game called Would You Rather. You ready?
I'm all in.
Okay. So would you rather go forward 100 years or back 100 years?
I would definitely like to go forward 100 years. I would love to see just the progression of my family, of the lives that my boys have, their children have, their children have. I would just love nothing more than to be a fly on the wall to see what has happened to the world, to society in general. So Jeff, count me in as 400 years ahead.
Okay. So is there anything other than the fun family stuff, and would not surprise me, that's the first thing that you would be looking for. Is there anything maybe in pop culture or in the world that you would be interested to see? Did it advance like you thought it would?
I would love to see how far social media has gotten or gone or even taken steps back based off of what we're seeing in society. Would there be more of a buy-in for it? Would there not be more of a buy-in for it? So I think from a technology standpoint, that would be super interesting. I also think in the world of professional sports, with things becoming so much more global, I would love to see exactly what the caliber of athlete that's out there. And I can only imagine the training plans mixed with the artificial intelligence, mixed with nutrition, I feel like that whole thing would be absolutely astonishing. Just looking from when I was younger, fast forward 38 years to now, and just how the athletes have just grown. And I can only imagine what would happen 400 years down the road.
Oh yeah, it's insane to see where everybody's at. Okay, so the next one. Would you always like to know the right answer or make the right decision?
I would always like to make the right decision. I always like to gauge things, whether it's personally, whether it's professionally, socially. It's called the pillow test, meaning when I put my head on my pillow at night, do I know in my heart of hearts that I made the right decision for me, for the people that I'm working with, that truly bring the best out of both? Were the intentions always there? And that's why I say pillow test is, if you could go to bed knowing that you were the best version of you and made the best choices based off of who you are as a person deep down, that is where the money will go, my friend.
Okay, so I want to dig into this one a little bit because so many people struggle with making any decision, right or wrong, because of the fear of making a wrong decision. They just don't make any decision. So, how do you what does your checklist look like on did Matt make the right decision so that he can lay his head down on the pillow peacefully?
Number one, it would start with the closest company that I keep. And obviously, my wife is my absolute everything, and is my most balanced, even keel sounding board you could ever ask. And I put myself in the situation of, well, what would Bridge do in this situation? I talk things through with her. And I always make sure, though, that the decisions that I make not only impact me, but now being a husband and a father, it impacts my family. Do I have those avenues in check? But then, most importantly, all parties involved. Will my decision not only benefit me and my family, but ultimately, will it put everybody else in a better situation because of the decision I made? So I just love taking things into account, but at the same time realizing that you do have to do what's best for you, family overall. But overall, just being the best version of you and just not having any preconceived notions as to why you're doing something. Just do what you feel is right, and there will be a natural ripple effect afterwards.
Sure. And then to layer on that, knowing what's right for you, how do you determine what that looks like?
uh, Everything is based off of experiences. I feel trial and error. I am one person who can say proudly, which will definitely trace into my world as a running, ultra marathoner, somebody who has really ventured into this world, is that I'm not afraid of failure. And I
Mm.
feel like having that mindset of being almost at times too confident and knowing that, hey, you might fail at this, but you have to do what you think is best in that moment. And those moments are where you find the ultimate learning tools to make future decisions and make them even better. So I feel like that started years ago when I kind of planted that seed of not being afraid to fail in order to find better solutions for the next time you encounter something.
Did you always have that, I guess, that no fear attitude of failure? Were you born with it or did you cultivate it?
100% cultivation. And I feel it all boiled down to the company that I started keeping and the people that I started surrounding myself with. People who encouraged healthy risk taking. If that's the type of clientele that you're hanging with, then those are the type of people who will still support you during your failures. And through that, that's where the confidence come of knowing that you could get back up. You could try something new. You could do something outside your comfort zone. But ultimately, for me, it definitely started with the company that I kept. And a large part is when I met my wife. I mean, she is the ultimate cheerleader and just one of the hardest working, most even keeled people that I know. And thanks to her, I feel like the sky's the limit. Anything you want, you just chase it and you could do it.
Yep. And I hope everybody heard not only between the lines, but exactly what Matt had said is it's so important of who you surround yourself with and who you latch onto. And then also being equally yoked. So you don't have to be the same, but you have to be headed in the same direction. And the guest that was on the show when this one comes out several weeks before, what he talked about having overlapping values, but not overlapping thought processes. And I
Mm,
really like that because we need to know that we have the same values, but I need you to think differently. Otherwise, we're never going to come up with anything new.
totally, 100%. And I feel like in my world that you have the grinders, you have the workhorses, and even though those people may, like you're saying, Jeff, may be on different paths of what they're going for and what they're accomplishing, you better believe that their energy though is going to trickle to me in my avenue, which then leads to just such an amazing formula. And it's really surreal and crazy how many things you could accomplish when you do find those group of people who are your engines, who really push you in that direction. And like you said, you don't all have to be going in the same direction, Jeff, but you have to be overlapping in terms of that energy. Where are you going, and how are you going to channel what they're offering you to achieve what you want to? And on that path, there's going to be failure, but ultimately there's going to be success no matter what.
Preach. All right. Okay. So, would you rather have pizza or tacos?
Oh man. Okay, so a lot of things go into this, Jeff. I would say if you're talking to me on a Friday night, I will definitely go for a slice of pizza without a doubt. But if you give me a Saturday where there's maybe a mid afternoon snack where you get the guacamole and chips out, you get your tacos, I look at tacos as more of like a Saturday experience. But if you're catching me on a Friday night after work, let's order that za and let's eat up that thin crust. Not deep dish, I'm going thin crust without a doubt.
Nice. Now, what is your post race
Oh,
craving meal?
Oh, Jeff, where do I even begin? So, when I think of mental fuel and real estate during a race, so much of it boils down to what am I going to consume after that race. So, the one rule I have for myself when I'm running these crazy, goofy distances, the one thing I cannot think about is the one thing that's fueling me to run, and that's my family. Because when I start thinking about my family, I think about my wife and my two boys, my absolute everything. I instantly get that feeling of comfort. Oh, I got to be on that couch. I can't wait to hug them. I can't wait to read a book, to watch the boys play Legos. But that gets me comfortable, which is not where I want to be in a race. So I go complete carnivore mode based off your question. Instantly, as soon as I get home, I would have, cans of Coke or Sprite without a doubt. After that, then I'm going pure chicken wings. I'm going fries. I'm going a side of barbecue sauce, side of ranch. And if I'm really feeling up for it, I might even go a little bit of baby back ribs as well, depending on my mood.
Man, that's a lot of grease. That's
It's a lot of grease, Jeff, but baby, it is worth it. Every bite of it.
Yeah. And it's so interesting to hear your thought process about comfort. Because I know when I've done some of those, I haven't done a 100 miler yet, but I've done a 50K and I've done some other long endurance events, is that I usually use the family to push me through. Because I heard on a Joe Rogan episode one time where when he's doing a workout and it's really hard, like he was talking about rowing, he envisions himself having to row to save his daughter,
Mm.
and that's going to fire him up to row, that she's on the other side of the lake, he's got to get to her to save her, and that's what drives him. And I've had runs where, the last 4 miles of the run, they're actually five, it's one's for my son, one's for my daughter, one's for my wife, and then the last one's for me. So I kind of would go that route. But it's interesting to think that you know yourself well enough to know that as much as you love them, that can't filter in to take you off the course of where you want to go and what you need to do. So talk to everybody on how you learned how to understand yourself better.
As you know, Jeff, when you're doing these long miles, you have a lot of time to think, and you have a lot of time that any insecurities that you have are going to come up and look you right in the face. So when I do these races, my number one rule is I don't wear any AirPods. So I won't listen to an audiobook, I won't listen to music. I use this time as like an ultimate reset cleanse, where anything that's irking you, whether it's professionally, whether it's socially, I know that it's all going to come out during that run. And it's during those moments then you almost forget that you're running, because you're thinking about moments that maybe you would have changed, that you would have liked to have changed, personalities that you came into contact with. And you're basically filtering through, why do I feel this way? How can I make it better for next time? And how can I continue to be the best version of myself? So it's almost like an active form of running meditation where thoughts will be coming and going. But I quickly realized, Jeff, as soon as I think back, like I said, to the reason why I'm running is to be the healthiest, calmest, most patient, creative father that I can. When I think of my two little boys and my wife, I instantly get in that comfort zone again of like, oh, it would be so nice to be home. It would be so nice to do. And I quickly have to shift myself back to what I call wild animal mode. And when you're in wild animal mode, that's when you just focus on the things that you want to change about yourself. And the reason why you're out there, I truly feel, is it is a system reset. Like there might be things that you've been trying to work on over the past few months, and that's the time to do it. And that is your venue to really put it into motion.
That is absolute gold. And I want people to hear what he said is, and you don't have to run 100 miles to do this.
Absolutely not.
Take the stuff out of your ears. Turn the TV off. Get uncomfortable in silence because it will reveal more than usually that you want it to.
Yeah.
But understand that you're going there to work and to do more. And I echo everything that you said, because when you go out, even if you just go out on a walk for like an hour, so 30 minutes, you can distract yourself long enough without ear pods, but you're out there an hour, some of those thoughts are going to come back around and it's going to force you to work through them. And it's so healthy and so important for people to do that and not be afraid of what's going to pop up.
Absolutely. And Jeff, let me put it back on you. When you're finishing doing a lot of miles, how do you feel at the end of it? Would you say raw is how you feel? Would it be authentic? Would it be drained? How do you feel and why?
Great question. And it's usually an element of all of those. And the why is because I've had time to work. And when you do a lot of these events, and especially if you do them at night, that's when it really gets ugly. It gets really, really ugly fast because you can't hide. You don't have anything visually to distract you. You have to start putting in work, and energized from the sense that I've got so many new ideas because it's popped in and then it leaves and it pops back in. And I'm going, why does that keep coming back? And then I start working on that and trying to, it uncovers more creativity to dig in. And though that's what I would say takes me back to the raw part, is that I feel alive. I'm beat. I'm exhausted. And depending on what's going through, that's when the drain would come in. But there's been events where I did the calendar club back in 2020, and that's running a mile for every day of the month.
Beautiful.
And I did the Canadian version with a friend. So it was a kilometer. So I didn't have to run a full calendar club, in all disclosure, but it was April, not February. Most people do it in February.
Okay.
But when I was done, it was harder to not get up the next day and go run than it was to get up and go run after I've just done all that on a consistent basis for a month. The other part is when I finished, I broke out in raw, drained emotion. Like I cried when I was done because here I got through the whole month. I did what I said I was going to do. And most through the month, I broke it up. But the last day, I just ran the 19 and a half miles. And it was just this feeling. It's like, I did it. Like I was so proud of myself for doing it.
And I could totally see where you're coming from. And just as impactful as the finish line is from what you're saying too, is just the power of the journey of getting there and just the reflection of everything of how you got from point A to point B and what that journey looked like. But that feeling of accomplishment, you just can't top it. And I could tell in your voice when you say that you truly feel like your most proud and authentic self by the end of it.
Yeah. And you go through it, and yes, it's hard, it's difficult, but to the raw part is you're just stripped, like emotionally, because when you're drained towards the end, you can't hold it back. You're like, why am I crying while I'm running? And what's awesome, this is what's great about the community. Everybody that's out there, they're either patting you on the back or they're kind of laughing with you because they've been there before.
Oh, my
and they
gosh.
just understand it. The ultra community is just unbelievable.
It is. Oh my gosh. When I did my first ultra, it was a 50 mile. It was the Ice Age Trail 50 in Wisconsin. And I'll never forget, I went up to Wisconsin. I was all by myself. First time doing a 50-mile ultra. didn't know the first thing about running with elevation, being a Chicago guy who did streets and trails around my house. And I pull up to that parking lot. Every other car next to me had Ironman stickers, had marathon stickers. And I'm thinking, Jeff, what did I get myself into? But I was so quickly embraced by that community where when you started, you felt like you had new friends for the next 10 hours of your life. I mean, there were older women who were working these aid stations who were willing to like pour ice down your back. It's like you're in a damn fantasy world, but in the best way possible. It was like, where am I? What am I doing? But it just shows the fun side of running and why people, I feel like it's such a growing trend of health and fitness as I feel it should be.
Yeah. And it's community. And
Yes,
it's
yes.
it's what I wish the world was like, where everybody's doing everything. They don't, I mean, strangers will touch your sweaty socks without a hesitation.
Yep.
They'll pop a blister on your toe. It's creepy, but it's just this unapologetic of we're in this thing together. I'm proud of you. I don't care if you finish in 6 hours or if you finish in 12 hours. We're
Yes.
just so excited that you finished and you're out here trying your best. And there's sometimes you'll encounter egos,
Oh,
sometimes,
totally.
but
Totally.
usually it's people just happy that you were out there, and it's great.
Absolutely. And like with the ego side of it too, Jeff, I've quickly learned that I felt like it was important to tell my boys whenever I go out for a run or whenever I go for a race. I always come home and the first thing I say is, guys, I had an amazing time, but guess what? Daddy didn't win again. And they're like, come on, Dad. But I want them to know you could still do something and love to do something, even though you're not finishing in first place and not trying to set PRs and nothing against that. I admire the heck out of those individuals. I'm realizing for me and my formula is that the more fun I have, the better I end up doing and the less stress and thought process you put into it. But just teaching my boys, if you find something that you love that is healthy and makes you feel good, it doesn't matter the pace you do it, just do it and embrace the process.
That's life right there, man. That's life. Okay. So the next question, if you came with a warning label, what would it say?
Uh, Early riser.
Okay. How early is early?
Early riser, I would say about 6 days out of the week, I'm out of bed by about 4:15 or 4:30 to get my workout in. So I feel like, as I referenced before, wild animal mode is definitely my mode where I feel if you get an incredible workout in the morning, a good shower, you're dressed and ready for the day before the time that your family wakes up. I feel like you're more patient. I feel like you're more creative. I feel like you're more empowered. And most importantly, most grateful. So I would say early riser without a doubt.
I love it. I love it. Well, everybody, like we talked about, this is Matt Matkovich, and he's a teacher, an ultra runner, a speaker, a great, great guy. And, Matt, I started this podcast 3 years ago now to bring on people like you, to share with the audience and with me just tips and tricks that you've used to keep you going on your pathways to greatness. It's also to share with the audience that everybody has a different pathway and
Yeah.
everybody has a different definition of what greatness is. They're all similar, but they're different. The one thing that is virtually the same, no one has a straight line from A to B on their pathway to greatness. And even running, you've got laps that are better than others,
Mm-hmm.
laps that are slower than others. You've got all these issues and challenges that face you along the way. And my ultimate goal is what we just talked about. I just don't want people to quit. I want them to be equipped with the tools to help them continue to move forward and build resilience and to continue to move forward. And that's why I knew you would be absolutely perfect for this show. And so, with all that being said, what would you say your definition of greatness is?
Being able to wake up every day looking forward to being in your uncomfortable zone. Because when you're in your uncomfortable zone, that is when you see the most growth. And I feel like that is when those demons come up, those insecurities come up, that area of growth comes up. And that could be waking up extra early just to get dressed and ready for the day. That could be getting up and making sure that you get your workout in before the day starts. But I feel like people on the road, on the pathway to greatness, need to not only enjoy the moments of uncomfort, but really, really embrace those moments too, because that's where you find out who you are and you get stronger because of it.
And what I like about that definition is if you anticipate the day that you're waking up to be uncomfortable, so you're excited, you're not worried. is that when that moment of uncomfortability happens, you're actually excited because you're
Yeah,
equipped, you're
yeah. Oh, I
prepared, you're
totally
ready
feel
to
like
go.
that's the.
So how do you go ahead?
Oh no, go
Sorry.
ahead. I was just going to say though, those are the moments where you mentally just have to get up and you have to take that first step. And when you start doing those things, the easier it becomes to work out that muscle of just being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
So when those uncomfortable moments occur in your day, help the audience understand a few of the practical tips of what you do to get through those moments.
First things first, when that alarm goes off at about 4:15 every morning, a good friend of mine who used to be in the Navy said that he was once given the advice of no matter how tired you are when that alarm gets off, just get vertical. That's my first step in the morning. No matter what, feet off the end of the bed, stand up. Whew. Because I once also heard that as soon as you hit that snooze button, you already gave 1 point to the day. So you don't want to give that point up early, my friend. So number one would be to get comfortable, or I'm sorry, to get vertical. And then after that, with other areas of discomfort throughout the course of the day, I'm a very firm believer in taking a step back and just doing breathing exercises too, in through the nose, out through the mouth, stepping away from a situation. If you received an email, if there was a situation that you had to take care of, getting steps in and embracing the power of movement. I feel like movement is absolutely everything. It changes your perspective, it changes your mindset, it changes your energy towards a situation. So, those are simple things that I do that when you do get uncomfortable, number one, you're prepared on how to tackle it. But number two, you know how to potentially face that again in the future. And everybody's uncomfortable zone is going to look very, very different. When I speak on mine, number one, it's getting vertical. Number two, breathe easy. And number three, movement is everything.
Well said. You can tell that you're a professional speaker.
Well,
Easy to follow along.
I'm not used to not having the tattooed blonde haired guy next to me, you know? So I'm like, wow, I get a chance to talk now. Don't tell him I said that, Jeff. But yes,
I'm sure he would embrace that
I'm
and
sure,
understand.
I'm sure he
He
would.
knows.
It's a joke. He loves it. We love it.
Well, I have tattoos and no hair. So,
There we go. Let's see. Let's get you on the road, Jeff. Come on.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, he and I, we were talking about, not that this is the Phil show, but he and I both have dots. And so there's not too many people that have dots that fill in. So we're
Yeah,
drawn to one another with the dots.
he does have a lot of dots. Look at that. See?
Yeah, yeah, very cool. So why don't you give everyone a brief backstory of who Matt is and yeah, like who you are, what you're about, and what you're doing today.
Absolutely, Jeff. Well, my name is Matt Matkovich. I am 38, going on 39 years old this April. Let's go. And I am born and raised in the southwest side of Chicago, Illinois. So I was extremely blessed to have the most amazing childhood and upbringing. I have one older brother. My parents had us in just an amazing, healthy, safe home with so many childhood memories. So I was just blessed. A few blocks away from Midway Airport in Chicago. So a lot of childhood memories involved playing in the backyard with my brother with some wiffle ball, and our soundtrack were just those planes landing and taking off from Midway. So very special to me to think back. My world socially has always been very, very small up until high school. So I graduated junior high with 26 students in my class, went on to high school, and that was the first time I ever discovered a microphone when I ran for class president. Became obsessed with speaking publicly, loved it, loved everything about it. And it was because I planted that seed back in high school that I volunteered to present at a school function with my good friend Phil, who I didn't really know well at the time. And here, because of that chance in high school, I was able to speak publicly for the past 13 years across the country, which is absolutely bizarre. But my journey also took different turns. In college, I commuted all 4 years. And I always like to say, with complete transparency, during that window, I had a miserable diet, terrible habits. I was a cigarette smoker, smoked a pack of cigarettes a day, zero exercise, could give a you know what about nutrition. Graduated college, went on to become a special education teacher, and I met my wife, who was a fellow educator at that school. And at that moment, life changed quickly, and I quickly wanted to become the best version of myself that I knew I had in me. And then when I knew I was going to become a father, at that point, that's when my fitness and nutrition game, I started taking it so seriously. I just started obsessing over it. And I thought back to running cross country in high school. So I started doing a block run, a 2 block run, and then a 3 block run, which led to a 5K. And then that is when I knew that running was something that made me feel like the best version of myself. And my wife and I have been married since 2013. We had our first little boy back in 2018, and ever since then, I've very proud to say I've run marathons, I've run ultra marathons, 50 milers, and recently 100 mile. And between the combination of public speaking, motivating young audiences, running ultras, being an educator, but ultimately being a husband and a father, I feel like I have found my personal formula and recipe for happiness, for success, and gratitude.
I absolutely love it. I love it because it's genuine. You can see, for those of you who are watching, you can see Matt's face that that's not put on. It's not a part of the script that he's memorized. I mean, it's truly something. And what I like about it is it had nothing to do with status, had nothing to do with finances. It just had everything to do with happiness and fulfillment that you've carved out to be important to you.
Absolutely. And I truly wish, and I feel like some people could go a lifetime without knowing the certain aspects of their formula that can make them feel like the best version of themselves. And for anybody listening today, I truly hope you could find the pieces, if you haven't already, that made you feel content to pass that pillow test at night, knowing that you were the best version of you. And for me, I quickly realized so much of it had to do with the food I was putting into my body, the exercise I was doing on a daily basis, the company I was keeping. And when I dialed those things in check, I was amazed at the things that I accomplished. And recently, speaking with my wife, and my wife is a very established entrepreneur in terms of running her own photography business. And we just had a moment of such gratitude the other day where we just think back and said, 10, 15 years ago, if we would have fast forward just to see the blessings that we have in our life now, just through hard work, through honesty, just through authentic grit and passion, we wouldn't even be able to believe it. So it really, your formula does work for you, and everybody's is going to be different, but I'm telling you, the company you keep and the work ethic you bring, you could accomplish anything you want.
And again, what's great is you have to have those moments of reflection. And so many of us don't. You talked about the grind and keep moving, which again is important to be motivated and have direction that you want to go in. You also have to see how far you've come. And so many of us lose sight of that. So we worry about where we're at, not knowing that where we're at today, we prayed to be here 10 years ago. And
Yes.
all we can do is think about where I want to be next. But it's like, think about those days when you couldn't run more than a block. And then here you are. Let's say you DNF'd 100, but made it 75 miles. You still ran 75 miles.
Yes.
Yes, you didn't accomplish that. But before, you could barely run a block. And I just always want to encourage people to hear what Matt had to say is take that moment to reflect and to look and to diagnose how you got to today for the good things. And if there's things that aren't good, just think you can fix them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I boil things down, Jeff, to 3 C's that I revolve everything around: the company you keep, the chances that you're confident enough to take, and number 3, the consistency in which you choose to pursue those chances. And if you're surrounded by that positive energy, if you decide to take a chance, even if there might be failure around the corner, but you're consistent in your approach daily, that is when you accomplish great things and things that you never thought you would have imagined before.
How do you, when you're talking to young people, because consistency tends to be foreign to them, which
Mm-hmm.
then turns into adults who aren't consistent with what they do. So tell the audience a little bit more about how you help people learn how to be consistent.
I basically tell them my story of how consistency absolutely changed my life from being a 3 mile runner to a 100 mile runner. And it involved doing things that were uncomfortable yet consistent, setting my alarm at 4:30 each day to make sure I ran 60 to 90 minutes every day before work, in the cold, in the dark, by myself, but just showing that the more you stick with something, it's like the saying where there's a gentleman in the forest who has his head down, chopping down one tree at a time. Eventually, you lift your head up, and an entire forest is chopped down. So, young adults need to know that the little steps you take on a daily basis, whether it's an academic goal, an extracurricular goal, whether it's practicing for a sport, whether it's giving a speech or in a musical, the little chunks you could do 20 to 30 minutes each day by yourself that are self driven, talking to yourself in that mirror, reciting a play or your lines. The more you do that day, chances are you're doing more than 98% of the other people who are also going to, pursue that goal as well. So it's little chunks each day, but they're not going to be fancy. They're not going to be celebrated. It's not something people are going to have rose petals for when you get home, but it's those little consistent steps that will set you apart from the rest. Same goes from a business mindset. The more consistent you are with delivering your message, the way you handle emails, how consistent can you get back to somebody? How consistently are you spreading your message? Those are the traits that will always stick with you when it comes to a client, but at the same time set you apart where people know you and they trust your work ethic.
So, how important would you say a plan plays into consistency?
100%. Every night before I go to bed, I truly feel you should have your plan set of things that are in your control for the following day. If you know that you want to get up early and iron your clothes or pack your lunch or make the coffee, make a list of things that you want to do before you head off to work. So you're not waking up blind, walking into a situation where you find yourself scrolling on your cell phone as opposed to knowing what you want to do. It's okay to overplan and to overstructure because that will clear up more hours later in the day where you could work on that self-care or spend time with your family. So I am a huge over planner, and you could never prepare too much.
Now we're singing the same song. I'm the
Yes.
same
Yes,
way.
Jeff.
And there's so many people, and I've been guilty of this as well. So by no means am I casting stones, is that like I'll just remember it.
Right.
You're not going to remember it. I'll tell you right now, because life is too chaotic and things happen. If you don't write things down, you're going to skip a step, or you're just not going to accomplish what you want to accomplish in the day because you don't even know what you want to accomplish in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the power, Jeff, like you said, of the consistency side of things. And when you do the same thing day after day, it's built into your schedule. It becomes part of your routine. You don't forget how to do something or when you should be doing something. The more you exercise that quote unquote muscle of building out your day and structuring your day, maybe my day's a little bit too structured for some, but for me, it's what works. It's where I'm able to check every box to be the best version of me, to get things done on my to-do list. And then my ultimate goal is to be present as a husband and a father when things are ready, just so you could be the best version of you. But I am an over planner too, my friend, and I love it. Let me ask you this, Jeff. What time are you getting up in the morning, and what does your morning routine look like? Because I love to hear this from successful people. What does it look like for you in the AM?
Yeah. So it's definitely at this point, it's a work in progress because my nighttime routine isn't dialed in as much. So that impacts my morning routine. So that's everybody needs to understand that your morning routine starts the night before for sure. And so the cats wake me up. So what I'm learning that I need to do is I need to get up before the cats wake me up because I'm I'm aggravated because they woke me up and then I've got to go feed them. And then I've fallen into a trap of laying back down on the couch because it's early. And so I'm like, well, let me lay here. And then usually I go back to sleep, which is to me worse than if I would have stayed up because I'm even more tired. But once I start my morning routine, which I've been able to do for really consistently the past 7 years or so, is I get up, I do not look at my cell phone,
Okay.
meaning that I don't even have it in my bedroom. Like I'm done with my phone in my room. So I get up and I open the YouVersion Bible app, and I've done that for almost 2,600 days in a row. I've just opened
Wow.
it every day. And it started out just like in training for a 100-mile run. is just reading the Bible verse that pops up. And then it's over time that's developed to where I read devotionals and I go through all that, and I'll spend at least an hour before I do anything with social media, or I won't even look at a text message. I do not look at email anymore, because I used to, when I was in the corporate world, I'd make my coffee, I'd sit in front of the computer, and I'd answer emails. And so like I'm getting worked up already, and I feel
Right.
accomplished because I've knocked out a whole bunch of emails, but it's just not, I don't think it's a healthy, productive way to start the day. So I start with my coffee, which I do pour over coffee. So it's like a routine and a ritual where the beans are ground, I heat up the water, I put the filter in the top of the Chemex, and then I pour it, and I measure it out, and I just go through this whole thing. And it's just, for me, it's a great way to slow my morning down because I have to do that. And then the smell's amazing and all of that stuff. And then I read the Bible verses. And then one thing that I've started recently is I have affirmations. I have like 16 to 17 affirmations that I read through of how I want to show up. And so like this week's, and I read them, I try to read them all consistently. And the one that I try to pick one for the week to make decisions. And so this week is I lead my family well. And so for me, I think of my actions during the day based on that. I lead my family well, on how do I talk to them? What do I do? How do I accomplish things? Because I want to have that plan of how am I going to approach the day. And then
Sure.
my calendar, I use highlighter. I have a paper, I have my phone. So I have multiple calendars that I use to stay in, I would say, in concert with what everything's needs to be, because then if I don't get to something, then I know it just moves to the next day.
Got it.
And then I really am purposeful to not move it more than 2 days. Like if something keeps getting slid, it means A, I'm not prioritizing my day correctly. And B, do I even need to do this thing because it's so unimportant that I keep pushing it day after day? Or C, do I just not want to do it and I'm avoiding it and I'm not being honest with myself? And so I just try to look at those things like that. And it, like you, it's taken time to cultivate what that looks like. But what I've seen it do to my day and to my life, I would never go back.
Isn't that refreshing? And it just seems like if you didn't have that structure and schedule outline lined up, who knows how many things would have slipped your mind or gone off the table. Like having that sort of guidance and blueprint each day, like you're saying, you prioritize what you need, but then you also cut the fat off the steak and realize, okay, maybe this isn't a top priority right now, and you zone in on what needs to be done. But I could tell you were a good morning guy, Jeff. I just need
Yeah,
to know what your formula was.
I like them. And I'm glad we're talking about this, because I need to get it refined, because I told another friend of mine that I was going to stop the couch thing, but it just comes, I just go back to do it. So I just need to sit back. I used to sit at the kitchen table, and
Okay.
that at least helps. So I've got to move back to not sit back down, which then in turn, I'm thinking out loud, will help me with my night routine, because I'll be tired earlier to try to go to bed. But you know, we're in a very busy stage of life, which is no excuse whatsoever. So I just have to get better at organizing my day, because there's never balance. I don't like it when people say work-life balance doesn't exist.
Right.
It's just, how do you organize your time and how do you prioritize?
100%. And I'm confident you're going to get there, Jeff, because as I like to say, that we are all just a huge painting in progress. Nobody has found their masterpiece, but we're still adding on color every day to try to be the best version of ourselves.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. I'm thankful that you asked that question, because it also is, we have to give ourselves grace when we
Yeah.
don't do what we've decided to do. Just give yourself grace, but go back. Don't make an excuse. Don't say, well, it's this. No, it's just, I'm not focused enough to get it done, because you can do anything. You can, I can stay up and not lay back down on the couch. Nothing, gravity is not pulling me from the kitchen to the couch. I have
I
to walk there.
No, I hear you, Jeff. I hear you. And I encourage everybody listening to this is to chase your goals, find your fuel. It's very easy to fall into that trap of grabbing a phone, scrolling through social media, being a couch critic of, oh, can you believe so and so's doing this, or they're trying to do what? And just think of the energy you're putting towards situations out of your control, as opposed to bottling up that energy for yourself to improve you, to improve your life, your family's life. And just like you're saying, dialing in on what matters, using your energy appropriately, channeling it in the avenues that you need to, you can accomplish absolutely anything that you want. Just bottle up that energy and put it in the right space and not the incorrect space.
Exactly. Like, don't watch the news first thing in the morning.
No, absolutely not.
Just
No.
one, I think the news is absolute garbage, but that's a whole other episode that we
Oh,
can probably go down. But definitely not first thing in the morning. And that's where I feel like, even if you don't want to get up and you don't want to exercise, you don't want to do some of the things that Matt and I are talking about, just do something that allows you to ease into your day, because we've all had that moment where we realize the alarm clock didn't go off and you spring out of bed like immediately. Like, sometimes I'm physically ill when that happens. I have a headache. I have this. It's because that adrenaline just punches in so fast. And
yes.
so just imagine when you can just wake up when you want to. Now, we all don't have that privilege to be able to do that. But if you just ease into that day and you do those breathing exercises on the end of the bed, you get up and you play good, like, comfortable music, or you play
Oh, yeah.
something that's this casual, and you make your coffee, I guarantee you with 100% your day will go better than if you fire out of bed, turn on the news, start opening emails and scrolling through Instagram.
And Jeff, you just set the tone for my kitchen table and living room area in the morning. We get the coffee going, we get the nice music going, and try to control as much of the energy as possible just to make sure that it's a great start to the day.
What's your go-to morning music?
Oh, good question. So we have a few different playlists uh, that we've listened to on vacation with the boys. If we went to the beach, I'm a very big Kygo guy. I feel like I love just more of that beach type vibe in the morning, a little bit more instrumentals. We also like Leon Bridges. We like Fleet Foxes. We like the Lumineers, just something very low key, but we are more of an instrumental family. My wife actually discovered a Spotify station that's Ukulele Disney. Jeff, it's going to change your life. Give it a
that's
shot in the morning. It is the most soothing wake up that you could ever imagine.
that's awesome. Which is counter to what our friend Phil likes to listen
Oh
to.
gosh, the stuff he listens to, Jeff. My gosh, when we're driving to gigs, I'm usually the one driving. He's in the front seat with the laptop, plugging away on PowerPoint, and I'll have my playlist on. And if I could tell you the words he's telling me about the music I'm playing, as similar as Phil and I are, obviously morals, foundation, values. When it comes to music, we could not be farther apart. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, he listens to the heavy stuff, and he says that's
Oh,
what makes him relax, like the beach music and
yeah.
those type things, which is
I mean,
hilarious.
I'm a Disney ukulele guy, and he's like, what is that? System of a Down or Corn or something, Jeff? I don't even know what the heck that is, but it
It's
scares me.
insane. Okay, so when you're giving your speeches or your talks or your lessons and your message to young people, what are
Yeah.
some of those messages that transfer over to adults?
Oh,
I
for
mean, I know
sure.
they all will, but what are some of those that I would say that stand out that you feel like would add the most impact?
Absolutely. And as of late, I've actually been speaking more to adults as well, just about my 100-mile journey. And I am just blown away as to how so much of the message is a direct overlap of self care, taking healthy risks, embracing awkward moments in life that happen to you, taking, changing your perspective of 2% in life is what happens to us, but 98% is how we respond to different situations, and simply being comfortable in your own skin and not being afraid of failure. So basically, everything I have covered up until this point, Jeff, from an adult standpoint, I check those boxes when it comes to the company consistency and chances. From a young adult standpoint, it's about being your own hero, embracing the awkward. And truly, the motto that Phil and I always live by is the ordinary is absolutely extraordinary. And I feel like we like to live that way on a daily basis.
I love it. And I like the message about embracing awkwardness and
Yes.
going through that, because I feel like as adults we get wound too tight and we
Yes.
just don't know how to be a kid and how to, and I'm a 100% guilty of this. And how do you help adults understand that awkward is okay because it's not you're being original. Awkward to me is like being original.
100%. And it's all about just dealing with insecurities. And you have to build off. There must be some aspect or certain section of your life that you are not feeling like the best version of yourself. And those insecurities stem from that little portion that you always wanted to improve and maybe don't know how or don't know where to start. And my solution is get outside your comfort zone, ask for help, and do the things that make you most nervous if you know it's going to lead to healthy growth. And I'm a firm believer. It all comes down to there's something that's not right, that you're not feeling like the true organic version of you. Why is that? Where is it coming from? And the only thing I know in my mind how I would change those things is to change maybe the food I'm eating, the people I'm surrounding myself with, the chances I'm taking, the consistency in which I'm pursuing it. That's my formula. But I challenge everybody to find those avenues of how could I improve that section of insecurity that would make me blossom into even a more positive or impactful adult for our young adults.
Yeah, because usually the insecurities when you're talking, like a lot of my insecurities come from something that happened a long time ago.
Yes.
They're not they're not real. It's just
Right.
what I've told myself about that situation. And I heard someone, and I'm probably not going to say it exactly correct, is why do we worry what somebody else's say when we wouldn't take their advice
Oh, it's the
anyways?
best. I love that quote. I love that quote. And to what you're saying, Jeff, sometimes we just have to rewrite our own history. And that's how we fix those little areas where if something did happen, or if there was a crash and burn in the past, or a big time failure, rewrite your history. Go back and make those fixes if you could. Or if you can't fix what happened in the past, how could you apply it to the future to kind of mend that bridge? Always put yourself out there if it means becoming the best version of you.
And usually it's the delivery that muddies the message. It's the
Yes,
way someone said it. It doesn't mean that what they said was inaccurate. It was just the way they said it got us all twisted up.
totally.
And it's usually like they're telling things to us because of their insecurities, their fear, their worry. It's the crab in the bucket syndrome, is that I don't want to see you succeed, so I'm going to pull you back in. And so the best I know how, because I don't want to physically pull you, is to say something, because the tongue is powerful and it cuts deep.
Wholeheartedly. And that traces back to be careful the company you keep. And like you're saying, Jeff, only take advice from those that you would definitely trust that advice coming from too. There's going to be critics everywhere, but if you continue to be you and be the best version of you, you just have to block out the noise, cut loose those anchors, and keep going with those engines going forward.
So I was watching the movie Say Anything the other night. Have you seen that
Oh, look at
movie?
that. I have not, but
Oh my goodness.
no, I have not, but I'm familiar with it though.
It was really good. So there was a line, and this happens in most of these 80s movies. So there was six guys sitting outside of this restaurant, and they're eating ice cream, drinking a drink, trying to tell John Cusack on how he should be handling his girlfriend situation. And so he's like, wait a minute, you guys are giving me advice and you're sitting out here by yourself. Why is that? They're like, it's by choice, man. It's by choice. And you sit there, and how many times do we take relationship advice from people who are not in a relationship or in an unhealthy relationship? Again, doesn't mean what they say couldn't help us, but do your due diligence of who you're seeking advice from and
Yes.
understand, because like if you want to learn about an ultra marathon, call Matt. He's done it. He's run them. If you want to learn about public speaking, call Matt. He's done it. He does it. So there's things that you do, but then there's other people that you just don't call. Like you don't call you about what heavy metal song should I listen to. You call
Right.
Phil.
Right. 100%. 100%. It's always important to consider the source, and your company is everything. And when you get that inaccurate feedback from somebody, as important as it is to listen to it, it's just as important to realize who not to take that advice from too, just to find the best version of you.
Yeah, it's young people. You
Yes.
listen to your 16-year-old buddies, but you're not going to listen to your parents who have done it, who have your best interests at heart. And then it's like, okay, your 16-year-old buddies know everything about life. Got it.
Absolutely.
Understand. But we've all done it,
Absolutely,
and we
yes.
continue to do it. And that's why I like
Absolutely.
hanging out with old people.
Oh, it's great. Yes, most certainly. And with our young adults, their brains are always growing. They're always getting more exposure to new things. And my goodness, when I was 16 in high school, oh, I thought I knew it all. Cross country runner, class president. Oh, yeah, I got the world figured out. And my goodness, Jeff, the world just becomes bigger and better each and every year.
Yep. That's because it's called wisdom. We keep
Yes.
learning, and we know, like you, we're avid learners, that we don't know everything. And so we want to look. And again, this guest, you'll have to listen to this episode. It's Coach Jeff Hubner. He talked about that his goal is to not be right, but to get it right.
Love it.
And I really like that, because that's that curious nature. Is I don't have to be right. I just want to make sure we get it right.
And
And
that's
that's
that
that.
growth mindset. Yeah.
Yep. And refinement. And I'll listen to you. You listen to me, because I want to make sure that we find what's best. And I just really like that. And so I wanted to share that with you, because I figured you might want to steal that.
No, I love it. I absolutely love it. And just the more knowledge you surround yourself with, you have to be open for growth. And they say if you're in any profession and feel like you know everything, it's time to find a new profession. Always look for growth. Always look for those areas of improvements, because we all have it. And that's the power of meeting people like you, Jeff, and throughout my speaking journey with Phil, the people that we've met, the things that we've learned, the resources we've been able to utilize, and just the doors that have been open when your mind is open to take in more knowledge and more advice. It's wild.
Yep. Put yourself in rooms that are so big that you feel little
Yes.
and you feel awkward. A friend of mine invited me to his mastermind, and I'm there for about an hour and a half. I'm going, what in the world am I doing here? I am unqualified to be here. But I know if I stayed there and was there consistently for a year, I would be qualified,
Of
because it
course.
was a whole new conversation vocabulary that I just wasn't familiar with. But boy, I felt ignorant and little, and that I couldn't add anything.
But you put yourself out there, taking a healthy risk. You were uncomfortable, and there was an investment down the road to make you feel even more unstoppable. What more could you have asked for?
Yep. Because I thought to myself when I left, I'm like, okay, that felt really weird and awkward, but that means that's where I was supposed to be. That's where I
That's
needed to
why it's
be,
working. That's why it's working when you get that feeling, without a doubt.
for sure. Well, Matt, I want to be very sensitive of your time. We could sit here and go for another hour, no question.
Absolutely.
We could.
Absolutely.
So, what would be some things you want to leave the audience with tonight?
No, I just encourage everybody in this audience to basically focus on finding the best version of you, finding your formula for success. Be happy, be kind, take care of yourself, make a plan, stick to the plan, and try to accomplish anything that you absolutely can. Coming from somebody who had little athletic background, who had healthy diet choices in the past, I made such a turnaround, and I feel like the good stuff is still even coming around the corner. So make changes if you want to, chase goals if you want to, because I promise you the investment is so well worth it. And Jeff, I cannot thank you enough for having me today. You've been nothing but kind, nothing but gracious, and the audience is lucky to have you, sir, coordinating these conversations and just speaking on your behalf as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I receive it. I take it.
Awesome.
And I want everybody to go back and listen to what Matt had to say. It was very valuable. And then I want to say thank you for asking me questions, because it
Oh,
really was good, but it made me think. I've only had a few guests that really have done that, and I appreciate it for sure. Now, this isn't a call to every guest to ask me a ton of questions,
but
because
Jeff,
I like asking the questions.
you have a lot to say. You are successful. You are accomplished. You are positive. It would be like ripping up a blank check by not asking you questions since I have you in this forum.
Yeah.
So
Well,
to me, that was a no-brainer.
yes. Well, thank you. Now, how can people find and follow you?
Absolutely. So for my speaking company with Phil, it's at M&P Presentations. I am on LinkedIn at Matt Matkovich. And then on top of that, I'm also on Instagram. And I'm not a big social media guy, Jeff, but I do post a little bit about my running and what that looks like. And it's Matt _ Matkovich on Instagram. So it's, like I said, not much of a social media guy, but if I am giving a presentation to adults, to young adults, I love to celebrate that and celebrate the great energy that we share. So feel free to follow, connect. I'd love to hear about you, your health journey, your fitness journey. I'd love to pick your brain, everybody. So please don't hesitate to reach out if at any at all point possible.
I love it. And I'll get all of those from him. So we'll put the links, the active links in the show notes so you don't have to worry about writing that down. But Matt, thank you. I really appreciate the time that you spent with me today. Hang on a minute after I click stop. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you.
Jeff, you as well, my friend, and to the wonderful audience, thank you so much for having me. And I hope you took something out of this. And I wish you nothing but health, happiness, and patience. And you will continue to do amazing things.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Matkovich. Thanks for joining us on the Pathways to Greatness podcast. We hope that today's conversation inspired you to take steps towards your own greatness. Remember, every journey starts with a single step. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit. Actually, share it with 3 people that you might think it might benefit. Until next time, keep pursuing your passions and carving your own path to greatness. Take care.